Hey, entire world. I have found that in my lowest points, journaling has been like my favorite outlet for expressing my thoughts and not only expressing them, but like thinking through them. Like when I put it to paper, I can sit there and think about it logically, like a story, like literary analysis or something, and it helps me to like process everything. And it's hard because even though I'm a writer, it feels so official and like I'm capturing this moment in my life to look back on 10 years from now, or for my kids to snoop through someday, and like it's hard to find the right words for it, and I feel like just talking with people is easier. So I thought I would try some video diaries. Not that anyone will care, but just for me. And I also like creating videos and stuff, so I thought this would be a cool, like, blog thing to, like, maybe help other people who are going through similar things, to, like, make them know that they're not alone and that we're all in this together. And I know that I have a great support system right now, so, you know, whoever this reaches, I hope that we can get through some of this stuff together. So what I wanted to talk about in this entry is that I think, personally, right now, I'm at my rock bottom. And that's not a depressing thing. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go and kill myself or something, because I'm in a much more stable and logical place than I was when I was a kid. So when I say that I'm at my rock bottom, I don't mean that I'm, like, not wanting to be alive anymore, because that's the farthest thing from the truth. I feel like I'm fighting for my life. But it just means that I feel like emotionally I am at my lowest point that I've ever felt. And that's completely separate from my logic that tells me, like, the world is wonderful and beautiful and awesome, and I appreciate a lot of things about it, and I am excited to participate in it, and I'm excited about everything and the opportunities of the future. But, yeah, I feel like right now I'm a train wreck, emotionally, even though things are going decently well in my life right now. And I always thought, like, up until this point, that my rock bottom was when I was 14 and I tried to kill myself, which some people that might see this already know that. Some of you don't. But, that was 5 years ago, so I'm not that same person that I was then, so I wouldn't worry about that. But I'm just saying that to make the point that I always thought that that was my rock bottom. That was my lowest point, where I was, like, at my wit's end with life. But I don't think that was my rock bottom. I think that was just a manic, one bad decision, like 1 second out of a really euphoric and awesome part of my life that I cherish so much. I think my real rock bottom was this summer, when I could look a gentle and honest and caring and loving person in their eyes and tell them I love them and not feel anything at all. I think that was my rock bottom. And I think a lot of people that hear that would agree that that is, you have to be at a really, really low and dark place to be able to have that emptiness and, like, do that to someone. And I think that that's just, that exemplifies, like, where I'm at right now. And if you hear music, it's because I'm listening to smooth jazz. But anyway, and I feel like I'm at that place right now because of my self-image and my value of my self-worth that I perceive, not what it actually is, but, like, how I perceive myself right now. Because I am single right now. And not only am I single, but I'm, like, I was supposed to be married, recently, but that didn't happen. So, and I've had a lot of heartbreaks within a very short amount of time. So, like, it's not just that I'm single and, like, happy. I'm single and heartbroken. And I have never been good with being single. I feel like since I was 13, I've never been single for a month at a time since my first boyfriend. And I've been single for about a month now, and it's good. And I know that I need this time to focus on myself and work on myself, like, logically, but emotionally, it's the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, which I know that a lot of people will think that's silly because I'm young and that I shouldn't care so much about relationships, which I shouldn't, but it's because it's an accumulative of everything that I've been to that's led me to where I am today, that has shaped how I view myself and how I view relationships. And I think I feel worthless without love because of a lot of trauma, like sexual trauma and emotional trauma. And I always thought that my sexual trauma, which I'm very vocal about, and I'm a big advocate for victims of sexual violence and stuff, because I think it's an important issue, but I think that it's not that it's overrated, but I think there's other forms of abuse that are not talked about enough. And I think that I always thought that was my worst experience. But in talking to my friend last night for like until like 5 a.m, I realized that I don't think that was my worst trauma. I think that my worst trauma was more like emotional abuse. And, like, I'll get into that in a second. I have, like, this isn't scripted, but, like, I have a little list of, like, points that I want to make, and I kind of skipped one. So, I'm going to backtrack for a second. And, I was talking to my friend last night, and she made the point that, she thinks that I run into so many relationships because I'm running away from myself. I'm not running into people romantically, like love at first sight, like I just have to run to them. I'm running away from myself, and that's why it's hard for me to be single, because of how I view myself. And that leads me into what I was saying. I just thought that was important, and I wanted to make that quote that she said, but I think that emotional abuse was my biggest trauma, because it, like, gaslighting and, like, belittling and manipulation and stuff like that, I think that's gotten in my head more than any other trauma that I've ever experienced, because it's literally taken, like, something that she said was, I'm not the same person that she became friends with years ago. That the person that she met and fell in love with, not like love like romantic, but like loved so much, that was like drawn to when we first became friends, I'm not that person anymore. I'm a shell of the person that I used to be. And that's why I think that emotional abuse, it literally takes such a bubbly and outgoing and carefree person and grinds them down to nothing, destroys them. Literally, I used to be the most, like, giggly, exuberant person, and now I'm anxious all the time. I feel like I'm in a never-ending panic attack. I'm, like, quiet. I don't talk to anyone. I'm very negative. Like, my intrusive thoughts that I have in my head are always very, like, violent and negative, and I'm just angry and bitter and cold. And I think that, like, the person that I was before these experiences, I miss that person. I want to be that person, and I am that person. The person that you are, I think, when you're in survival mode trying to protect yourself, you become cold, because you're in so much pain that it becomes anger, because when you're in pain, you want to hurt yourself. And I'm not just talking about self-harm like cutting and stuff. I'm talking about negative self-talk and beating yourself down. Like, when you're in pain, you just want to take it out on yourself, but when you're angry, you take it out on other people. You can blame the world instead of yourself, and you do that to protect yourself, to make you feel stronger. And then when there's no one to be angry at, it all comes crashing down, and you go back to blaming yourself because you haven't healed. Like, it's just like, instead of fighting with somebody all the time and being in a toxic relationship, you're just left with yourself again. And I think that's why I was always running to be with people, because, like, I could be in a negative situation and do reckless things, like hooking up with people and falling in love really easily, because I could get myself into these bad situations where I could feel like I'm feeling this way because of this bad situation, and not I'm feeling this way because I'm stuck with myself. Like, I can't be alone with myself for a minute without going crazy, because, like, when I'm alone, I just feel worthless, and the weight of all of these negative things that people have said to me, that I'm I'm burning incense and it's like getting in my mouth. All of these negative things, I'm not crying, it's just my throat burns. All of these negative things that people have said to me, that I'm psycho, or that I'm a child, or that I can't do anything right, or that they wish they never met me, or that no one will ever love me, or that, like, there was a boyfriend I had years ago when I was really suicidal back then. I would talk about wanting to kill myself, and he'd be like, well, I wish you would just do it so I don't have to hear about it anymore. Stuff like that. That shapes how I feel about myself. Hearing all these things, you start to really believe it. When you surround yourself with so much negativity, instead of building this wall that you think you're building, where you're, like, surrounding yourself with negativity, it's kind of like an equilibrium. Like, you feel like so much negativity in yourself that when you surround yourself with it, it feels normal and comfortable, because that's how you feel on the inside. But then when you take that external factor away, you're just left with the negativity on the inside in a positive world, and it's confusing and scary. And so that's why I just want to run away from feeling that way. And when I finally got out of those situations, I asked her, like, recently I've been trying to work on myself really hard and try to find myself again, like, coming out as trans, and, like, trying to figure out who I am on my own in this time that I've been single. And I said, have you seen the color coming back into my life? Have you seen me, like, becoming myself again? And she said, like, I'm gonna be honest with you because I think you need to hear it, and I want to give you tough love and not just agree with everything you say. And I appreciate endlessly people who are like that, because I need to hear the truth. I need reality checks. I don't want to just be blindly comforted and supported. And she said, no, not really. I don't think that you are the person that you're meant to be yet. Like, I asked about the color, and she said there is some color coming back, but it's more like Technicolor. Like, you're still in a lot of shade and darkness, and you do a lot of reckless things still. And I think that, like, she said that, like, when I'm single, in trying to be carefree and trying to be wild and happy like I used to be, instead of being carefree in a positive way, I'm carefree and reckless. So, like, making a lot of bad decisions, and I need to drink a Mountain Dew. I'm sorry. In the name of being carefree, I do a lot of reckless things and put myself in a lot of dangerous situations that I think are fun, like hookups and stuff. And, like, trying to meet people on Tinder and stuff like that, because I still, even when I'm not in a committed relationship, I'm still searching for the validation from a man. And that's just as bad as basically what she was saying, is that I'm still not focusing on myself. I'm still taking the energy that I should be putting into self-love and wasting it on things that are still hurting me. And it reminded me of when I was like 12 and I first talked to God, which, by the way, I have a really close relationship with God. I talk to God all the time. Like, me and God are really tight. He's probably my best friend and my biggest supporter. Like, it's only by the grace of God that I've gotten this far in life. And the first time that I ever actually heard God's voice in my head, like an answer to my prayers, I was laying in bed. I was like 12, like I said, and I was like crying, and I was like, God, please show me the way out of this. Like, please, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel so lost and scared, and like, just show me anything, tell me anything, give me a sign that you're there looking out for me. Like, tell me what to do, tell me how to get out of this situation. And he just said, the only thing, this is I remember it like it was yesterday, the first thing God ever said to me was, the only thing I want you to do in this life is learn how to love yourself. And I've heard that in the back of my mind this entire time, ever since then. That was 7 years ago, but I've never listened to it. That's the one thing I've never done. The only thing God asked me to do, didn't tell me to go to Africa and do like some missionary mission. All he wanted me to do in this life was learn to love myself, and that's the only thing I haven't done. Like, I procrastinate on everything, schoolwork, like cleaning, everything. I push into the last minute until I have no choice but to do it, and I think that that's the same situation with my self-love and finding myself. I've just pushed it off and said, like, focus on building a life with other people and falling in love, and I have not done any work on learning how to give it to myself. Like, I've just always searched for this external praise to fill the void inside of me instead of giving it to myself, which is what I really need to do. Like, the reason that being single drives me so crazy is the exact reason why I need to be single. Because it's just evident that I can't stand myself. Like, I'm not trying to be, like, edgy, but sometimes, because of the way that people have made me view myself, by the way that they've talked down to me, has made me hate myself. And I have never hated myself. Like, even when I was suicidal when I was younger, I didn't hate myself. I hated the world. I hated my life. I hated my surroundings. I hated my friends. I hated school. I hated responsibilities. I hated expectations. And hated the unknown. And hated even my body sometimes. But I never... or hated my mental illness, but I've never hated my soul. I've never hated the voice that lives in my head. I've never hated my spirit. And after everything that I've been through, it's shaped me into a person who I hate. I hate the way that I've acted. I hate the way that I've treated people and the way that I've carried myself, and the person that I've become, I hate. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think blind self-love is just as toxic as self-degradation, because I think to blindly say, this is just the way I am, take it or leave it, like always just loving everything about yourself is kind of detrimental to yourself, because I've always just thought, like, I'm a terrible person, I do terrible things, but I love it, this is who I am, and, like, expected people to treat me with utmost respect, even when I was terrible to them. And I think it's time to, like, it's a wake-up call to say, like, I hate what I'm doing. And I know that you would say, like, oh, well, what you're doing isn't who you are, and you can hate your actions but not hate yourself, but it's not just the actions, it's my thoughts, it's my, just everything about the person that I've become in recent years, I hate. And I need to completely dismantle everything that I've, like, grown into and just start over and practice genuine self-love, not blind self-love that, like, I love everything about myself, and I mean, like, real self-love, like, taking care of yourself, tough love, saying these are your issues, and we're gonna change them, and not just, like, therapy and medicine, which I do both of, will never solve the problems, because you have to spend a lot of time inside your own head to really, like, pick apart why you do the things you do and learning to unlearn the things that you've grown into for survival. And that's what I need to do. I need to really focus on myself and take this time to find who I am. And I'm gonna do that. I will never give up. I'm a fighter. Like, there is a reason that, for the last, 4 years in a row, If You're Going Through Hell by Rodney Atkins is my #1 most played song of the year on Pandora every single year, because even at my lowest, I am a beam of positivity, and I am, when you're going through hell, just keep going, because you'll get out before Satan even knows you're there. That's, what I live by. You just keep going, and one day it will all, the sun will rise, and everything will be okay. So, and that's what I was saying about, I'm a fighter. My #2 most played song is Always Eye of the Tiger, because that just pumps me up. So, listening to my smooth jazz, fighting through this, we're all in this together. If anyone ever needs to talk about anything, I am the best therapist I know. So, much love to everyone. Very excited to see this character development.